All right, Facebook Live. This is Max.
What's up?
Okay, I'll give you like a better intro for those that are watching. So if you know Max right now, give him a little thumbs up and be like, "What's up, Max?" Give him some love. All right, everybody. This is Sam Tagger with the DDD Podcast, and I'm here with Max. How do you say your last name?
Ganley.
Ganley. Okay,
Yeah.
I always butcher people's names. I'm like, I don't know.
hard.
Okay, so Ganley, he has been in the solar space for over 3 years now, and he's the district manager at Legacy Power. Here, we're actually here in Arizona in his house, and he did his group, like his team, was one of the top offices at Legacy, and they did over 1,200 accounts this last year. It's not 2018. That's weird. It takes me 6 months to like learn the new year, and then it's like, oh, it's
like on paper, I'm gonna keep writing 2017. Then have to like scribble.
Yeah, every time.
Yeah.
Like 7 to 8's not a hard. I mean, it's kind of hard. Anyway, so Max has been, one of the top reps in Legacy, and yeah, super excited today. We're gonna jam on a few things. We're gonna talk on processes and understanding the importance, like becoming a better sales rep by understanding what goes on behind the scenes. We're gonna talk on your why and kind of like really as a leader, because you've recruited and managed awesome teams, understanding how to dive into their whys and creating better pictures there. And then we're also going to talk on psychology of sales. Like, being one of the top reps in solar, it'll be really fun to kind of understand like the reason why you say what you say instead of just repeat a script, right?
Yeah.
And we find that's always a problem. So before we kind of dive into that, I want to hear kind of like how you got into this. Tell us like why door to door. Tell us your story.
Yeah, I'm LDS Mormon. I served a mission. I got home at the end of 2014, and it seemed like everyone was doing door to door when I got home. And I had like 6 different Vivint managers come talk to me, and like, you gotta come out and do this door to door thing. And it's funny, I promised myself I'd never do it, but I met with them, and I decided to give it a shot. So I was gonna go out with Vivint, and right before the summer, I actually switched over to solar, and just kind of got into it. And I think the biggest thing I saw right off in the bat, whether it's Vivint or where I'm at now in solar, is like the opportunity. I was just kind of amazed that a 21, 22-year-old could have an opportunity to be, something that door-to-door could provide. And so that's kind of what got me into it. And then just kind of lo and behold, I've just kind of taken an opportunity. I've done over 100 accounts the 2-3 years I've been in solar every year. And then I've had an opportunity to manage teams that do over 1,000 accounts a year as well. So, which is massive. Yeah, I guess.
Especially at a young age. I mean, you're one of the younger guys that do this, and it's fun to see the up and comings. Like, we just interviewed a couple other solar guys that have been in it for 15 years, where you've kind of the young talent moving forward. It's fun.
I think the biggest thing is surround yourself by 5 people that you find the most influential. One of them is my dad. I'll talk about that a little bit later. And just other people, I've been really lucky to be surrounded by people that have been successful, so therefore it helps me be successful. I think that's been a big thing for me going through these last couple of years.
And it wasn't always your vision going to be a door-to-door rep, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it sounded like on your mission you were talking about a little earlier, like you were anti, right? And tell us a little bit about like why were you so against it, and maybe just in the upbringing of like how you were raised, like.
Yeah, can I go back? So, I was really grateful. I grew up in a really financially stable home. My dad is a great mentor of mine. He's back when he was 35, he actually retired. He was able to sell one of his companies for $100 million. So he's created one of the first internet.coms. He's done a lot of amazing things, in the business aspect. And so I was kind of one of those spoiled rotten brats. Drove an all blacked out Escalade to high school. I was kind of baller. I had the 12 subs in the back. I was that douche, but I was kind of always had the mentality like, well, hey, I got everything. I don't need anything. I'll be given everything, and that entitlement. And
which we find a lot of these days.
Yeah, that's millennial, right?
Yeah, no, and it's so common. Like recruiting, you're like, you literally have never picked up a shovel. Like you had a free Escalade in high school, and and I really, those that are listening, we're gonna talk on like how to shift the paradigms and how to deal with that millennial age recruit was given everything, So
that's big. Don't judge me. Good thing my wife's not here. We have a purple tool case because it's her tools. I don't even own any tools. Don't judge me. But
hey, my wife won't let me hang a picture on the wall. She's like, it'll fall and hurt our children. I'm like, it's a picture. Like, I'm really gonna have to pay to have somebody hang this. Like, I'm serious.
She'll do it. Her dad's a contractor. She'll do it instead of me. She gets
awesome.
mad. So.
Purple tools. That's great.
I have talents here. You have talents here. We're a win-win. But
I love that.
But no, I grew up with that, and I think serving the LDS mission, and then I'm more of just maturing and growing up and realizing that I wanted to be able to accomplish things in my life that I could say I did and I wasn't given, is kind of what my mentality started to become. And what I realized though is there wasn't many things unless you go start your own company, this, that, or the other, besides door to door, that you could go and do those kind of things. I've always wanted to own my own businesses, which I do now on the side of the solar and door to door. And I noticed though the gateway and the door to that was going and doing door to door sales. And so that's kind of what got me in the door. And then I started to realize once I was in it, it's very simple to be successful. And what I mean by that is if you just create a system that you feel comfortable with, that pushes you, but also that you're able to achieve like mini goals to reach a big goal, anyone could be successful in this job. I think it's just, like we all know, you've been in it a long time. It's like a law of averages. You knock a certain amount of doors, you'll find a certain amount of people. I think that's the same mentality you have to have in every category of success when it comes to life.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about maybe what are some of the events or things that happened along that way to kind of shift your paradigm from like being daddy's boy to like, I'm gonna be my own man. Like what changed? Like what things inspired that?
Yeah, I think to kind of be real, a little back history. When I was 9, my parents got a divorce, and my mom moved out on us. And shortly after that, she actually became a drug addict to cocaine and heroin.
Wow.
And it was pretty tough. Being young, I had 2 younger sisters, and so we didn't really understand what was going on. We just were told, hey, you're being taken away from your mom. And
yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, and unfortunately, she was never able to get clean, and sadly, actually passed away about 6 months ago because of all those addictions. It kind of just eventually took her life, and
wow.
So that was really sad to see, like the digression of that, and never growing up with a mom. So we grew up just with my dad, and as awesome as my dad was as a business guy, I think it was a really hard thing for him to be successful in business, but understand how to be successful parenting and like that. And I think what clouded my judgment and helped me realize. Like I didn't want that is he would buy our love. I drove that Escalade because he wanted us to be happy, and that's how he'd do it and stuff. And so I was kind of in this bubble of like not having a mom because of drugs and having a dad that maybe
thought money would buy love.
Yeah, like hey, let's buy this house in this place of the world and take you guys there. Let's buy you this car, all these kind of things. And how cool would that be to be 16 driving a car like that and having all these things? Well, that's when I started to realize like. It's awesome to have those things, but that's not truly what brings happiness. I think the biggest component to happiness is knowing that you were able to achieve happiness on your own and people just didn't give it to you.
Yep.
And so I think that's the biggest thing is looking back in my life, realizing all those things that happened with not having a mom because of drugs and having a father that kind of just wanted to buy our happiness was a big deterrent for me to push forward to be successful.
Do you feel like having a father like that helps motivate you, demotivate you? Like, how does that help you in the business aspect of life? Obviously it's like finding true fulfillment, but like, it's almost like big shoes to fill, or has that been like almost like I have like a benchmark I need to like impress him, or like, what is that relationship business-wise?
Yeah, my dad tells me I can't retire until I make $15 million.
Really?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, so I think everyone in my dad's mind should have an accountability partner. Your wife, a friend, coworker, anything. And so what I mean by that is every night at like 9 o'clock or later, my dad calls me, asks me how many sales I got, how many leads, how good the team's doing, like every night.
So he's like integrated into your success.
My gosh, he knows everything about my job, but he's so integrated. And a lot of times I feel like, man, you're too much, but I know at the end of the day he has good intentions because he wants me to be successful. And I think because of that, it's helped me push to the next level. And I think, again, going back, everyone, if you don't have one, should have an accountability partner. And wives are usually, the best connection in that.
But the fact that, like, I'm sure that strengthened your relationship because your dad can, like, almost, like, there's a reason for him to create a common ground. It's like, I'm out of the glory days of, like, running my own companies, and now I get to, like, kind of live those glory days through my son. And it kind of gives him an opportunity to connect, but also you to be like, cool, like, my dad actually cares, and, there's some accountability there. I'm sure he's been a great mentor, has some good advice,
Yeah, he definitely has. He's the type where, like, I think my best day is I've sold like 6 or 8 in one day solar. And I called him after. I was excited to tell him how great I did. And he goes, well, that's cool. How many are you going to sell for the week? Well, I don't know. Well, if you don't sell 20 for the week, then I don't think that's very good. Like God, I just did 8 in one day. Like, so it's a good accountability. It puts me in check, but it's pushed me a ton to step it up to the next level. And I think everyone should have that kind of accountability in some form of a relationship.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
No, that's like inspiring, and I think it'd be hard to be a single dad in business and trying to raise kids, and you got to give him some props there. And it's cool though that it's like you've been able to take the other route, because I mean, how many friends did you have that were spoiled in that nice neighborhood that are now doing nothing with their lives and took the different route, right?
Yeah, we were talking earlier about that. I think a lot of people just have that entitlement. I have that entitlement in the sense of that I want to have that same lifestyle that I had, but knowing that I did it. You know, like I've been grateful I'm able to buy my first house this year, and I was cool to say to myself, you know, I had an opportunity to buy a house because I went and earned it. You know, and things like that. And so I think that's what drives me.
Yeah, and you also are a partner in a franchise, like a juice franchise,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you're talking about building your real estate portfolio. Like, that's crazy. I mean, you're 24. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's kind of dive into some of the principles. So first off, I want to talk about like the why, because you know it kind of segues us from what we were just talking about. But like, you kind of have a cool philosophy on what's your why. Tell me what that means to you. First off, I want to hear what's your why, and then I want to dive into like how you structure why from a leadership and motivation and mindset.
My why is very entwined with what we were just talking about. My why is that I want to be able to provide a successful life for not just myself, my wife, but my future kids, and know that I was the one that got to provide that. You know,
Yeah.
For me, it's very emotional and very tied into the fact that I don't want my dad to be the type that had to give me something that I didn't earn. As a kid, we all wanted that, but now I grew out of that. And so that's what pushes me when you have those hard times. Is my why is I want to be able to provide the lifestyle that I know I was able to provide because I worked for it. And I think the why is number one for me of the biggest thing I've seen managing and personally selling is how many times do we all have guys, what's your why of why you want to come work and do sales? I want to buy that Audi. Okay, cool. Why? Because it's cool.
I mean, we hear that so much. I even hear like, I want to make $100,000. Why? Because that's what.
Because then I'll be awesome.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah, and you hit it around the head. Is it's cool to say, hey, what's your why? I want to make $100,000. Well, why? Like, what are your mini goals? What's the process to make $100,000? But I love being surrounded and working with guys that I want to make $100,000 because I have a guy that I have an opportunity to work with, one of my really good friends. He wants to make $200,000-$300,000 this year because one thing, he wants to pay off his mom's home.
Wow.
Like that's a real, like to me, I was like, man, that's awesome. What a cool guy. As far as I think money doesn't have to be the number one priority of why you be successful, but I think there's a lot of things that you could do to be successful with it, that you could provide happiness, and it gives you the freedom. I think on a religious standpoint, it's so grateful that I have financial freedom to then be able to provide service in my community, in my church calling, and on all those different things. But I think it's the success that finances can give you the time and freedom to do those things.
Yeah.
So I think that the why is the biggest thing. I think it's good to have, whether you want to have an Audi, but what's your why of having it, the justification of it, And sometimes when I've asked people when they want that fancy car, well, why? I heard you say on a podcast a Tesla. It's not bad to have a Tesla, but it's like, well, why? Like I think there could be things that people could go for more that could be more productive for not only their family but people around them.
What advice would you give somebody if they're struggling at finding that deeper why? They're like, well, I don't know if I know the answer to that. Like, how do you formulate a deeper why? How do you find more purpose?
I think it's a 1, 3, 5 years. Like, where do you see yourself in 1, 3, and 5 years, and then work backwards.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself, if you're not married? And if you're married, what does that usually bring? Well, you got to pay bills. You've got to provide a house over your head. All those kind of things. And so I think if you look in that perspective, whether it's like, hey, in 1 year I want to be married. Well, what does that mean when you're married? Well, I've got to have money to buy a house. I've got to do this, that, and the other. So then setting goals appropriate for that. And I think mini goals, don't set a goal your first month to go sell 3 times or as much as the top salesman. Like, work your way up to it. It's okay to progress up and up and up and things like that.
Yeah, it's interesting to talk about like kind of the working backwards, because it just triggered something in my mind where for a college kid that maybe he's 21 and he's like, I could literally live off of $20,000. He might in a year make $30,000 or $25,000 and feel good and be like, that's plenty to live. But if he said, okay, I'm 21 now, I'll be 26 in 5 years, I'd probably have a kid, be married, probably want a home. So it's like, okay, I need to be making $150,000 or $100,000 to feel like super fulfilled and successful. So why don't I start making that now, so that I can then have a head start instead of be just living paycheck to paycheck, and almost tying back the whole, I'll operate in 5 years from now, I'll operate today what that needs to be.
Yeah.
And like kind of connecting that.
I think the biggest thing is the thing that I've been taught and something I try to apply as a manager that helps is helping guys fulfill and succeed in whys outside door to door. I think we can all know guys that, how many guys think that they can just clock in and clock out the times we go on the doors or the summers or whatever, where what are reps and what are we doing outside of that? You know, for me, I have to drive an hour to work every day because we sell out in a different utility. And so what am I doing for that hour I'm driving? Am I listening to motivational books? Am I reading my scriptures? You know, am I doing things like that? Or am I just kind of listening to music and not doing anything purposeful?
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing, is asking guys and challenging guys outside of door to door. What are you doing outside of that to be successful? And I think that really correlates with success on the doors too. I've seen that personally in my life, and with guys that I've wanted to be more successful in my office, I've pushed them on the outside things, and therefore the byproduct has been they've been more successful here.
What things outside of door to door have you studied, learned, listened, practiced that you would say contributes the most? Like if you had to be more specific.
I think a consistent schedule. You know, for me, I always wake up at 6:30, 7 o'clock every morning, go exercise, just being consistent. Eating healthy, like having, I guess, goals and consistent goals in, you know, family and marriage, even if you're single family, health, like goals and all those things that are consistent. You get in that consistent mindset, therefore you go out and be consistent in your job too. You could probably attest. How many guys do you know just kind of don't do any, if they do summer sales, the other 7 months they may be
just vegetables. They're just
and so I've been really grateful to be surrounded by guys that, whether they did summer sales or they're doing year round, like our solar program, or, you know, my father, where it's like, what are you doing to actively keep your mind growing and learning and being busy, you know, whether it's buying another business or starting something else and stuff like that. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's kind of shift gears here for a second. And just a fun little plug, like for those that are watching Facebook Live, like I think so many people, it's 2018, the beginning of the year, I think a lot of people fail to deliver really dive into their why for 2018. So I challenge anybody listening to this right now that's on the live, like do something right now that's going to deepen that why, so that 2018, the goals don't fizzle out in the next 2 weeks and you're just sitting there like, oh, I stopped going to the gym, but I was really excited the first couple weeks of January. Like, yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I just think like you're going to last a lot longer. And it was so funny. This was probably one of the first years. I just want to share this. Like I was really reflecting, because usually like in the past, my goals were, you know, I was so excited for the new year to set new resolutions and set new goals. But this year was so different. Like it was like just another week. Like I honestly, like I didn't do anything really different from a goal setting standpoint. I just wrote down the goals that I already had, that I've already been talking about every single week, and that my routine's already in place. Like my goals I already knew for 2018 6 months ago. Like, you know what I mean? It was just like I already been thinking 2018. Like, what? Like I guess I could write it down again, because I write down my goals every day and every week, and it's like just another day. Like it was so different. And you know, I think that I was reflecting on this the other day, like kind of New Year's, because I was like, why am I not like all hyped up about this whole resolutions? And it's like I don't really have much. Like it's just doing what I know I should be doing, and I've already been practicing that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Not to say that I'm perfect, but like I think if your goals and your why is deep enough, it shouldn't have to be a resolution. It shouldn't have to be this like new birth. Like it's like, no, reflect, but it's like, no, this should be consistent. So I think that's kind of an interesting point to plug in there. But so transitioning to like understanding the processes. So the second point that we really wanted to jam on was we were talking about earlier, like, okay, sales reps, there's one thing training on how to sell, right? But what deepens that, you were telling me, is kind of the process behind that. So explain kind of what you mean by that.
Yeah, I think it's two things we'll touch on today. Is number one, knowing the process of, like, for example, for those that know about solar, is from the time you sign an account to install, it's about like a month to 2 months before it's actually installed. Well, knowing what happens up to install, and if something goes wrong, what, you know, for me being in solar, what could I do to maybe move the process faster, this, that, or the other? If I'm in the home and the app glitches out, how could I still get the deal without the app, kind of thing? You know, well, there's a website we have, for example. So I think number one is knowing your product and knowing kind of your process you don't have to be a master on it, but at least knowing the process so that when things come up, you seem like the professional salesman, not only for the customer maybe you're in front of when it happens, but for your reps if you're a manager trying to become a leader, all those kind of things.
Well, I almost think of it as almost like medical sales. Like I have a good friend who does spinal product for doctors, and it's like I think of him as a salesman, but the reality is he actually needs to know how to install the freaking spinal thing, and he's with the scrubs, like face mask, in the surgery room, handing the doctor utensils, like watching the process. But I'm like, wait, you're in sales? He's like, no, it's more freaking surgeries than it is selling. Like,
good point. Yeah.
And it's interesting that, you know, if you're doing pest or satellite or solar or roofing, whatever, like there's an aspect of being a master of the process that makes you the salesman you need to be.
Yep.
So like you talked about, like let's just use main panel upgrade or MPU. Like why would knowing and understanding what that even means? Where probably a lot of solar people watching this are like, what's an MPU or what's a, you know what I mean? Like what is that? Like why is that going to help strengthen my sale?
Yeah, like well, for example, here in Arizona, if a home was built like in the 60s, 70s, 80s, a lot of their electrical panels that run the home in solar are too old to support the kilowatts of like solar running through it, and so they need to be upgraded. It's like $2,500 here in Arizona. Well, our company like Sunrun pays to replace those. So knowing like what is the cost of those, which homes if you go into a certain area is going to need them, and then applying that in your sale. Sometimes that could be a
selling feature.
Yeah, selling feature for people. But also knowing if a home needs an MPU, well, that's going to tack on an extra week to the whole process as alone. So preparing the customer, like there's a lot of different angles you could take in that example.
Yeah, it's setting expectations.
Yeah, the right expectations, all those kind of things, and just knowing, and a lot of people want to know like how does it work? Well, it runs from DC to the conversion. Well, it's got to go through the main panel and stuff like that.
So what about like, have you ever found accounts where they're just sitting there? Like in limbo, and it's like just because you knew the process, you were able to take proactive actions to kind of move it and like get paid faster, or treat that customer a little bit more better on the service side from a sales rep, and they're like, man, like Max is in like my ear all the time, he's updating me, he's communicating, and like I'm sure there's been times where you've had that where it's like, dang, if I wouldn't have like paid attention to the behind the scenes, I would, I would have almost lost the account. Like I just have one right now. It was like failed the roof inspection that somehow got missed, and they go to install and they're like, well, you need a new roof, and it's like, that was 2 months ago. Like I should have known this. You know what I mean? And it's like, what did I do to resolve that, and like knowing who to call? Because a lot of times it's like you'll get a call to the manager, right? The reps that are watching this, you'll call your manager and you're like, oh, what's going on? Like I need to fix this. Why aren't you getting paid, right? And as a manager, like, what do you do in that phone call?
Of me?
Yeah.
Well, instead of just doing it for them, I teach them how to do it. I do it for them and teach them how to do it. Yeah, that's exactly like I bet you could attest to. How many times have you had accounts, like if we use the solar example, go 6 to 8 months to take to get installed, but because we knew what was going on, we were able to at least tell the customers. They were still happy as could be, even though they didn't know that they could have been installed in 2 months, but it took 6 months because of all the headaches. But because we were knowledgeable enough, we could tell the customer and stuff like that. That's the key.
But a lot of times, because the rep isn't trained properly, and he doesn't know the processes, and he doesn't know why it's taking 6 months, because that just can happen. It's a permit city that takes longer than normal, or it's a re-roof job or whatever, and the rep is like, well, you told me when you hired me that these are average a month and a half install times and blah, blah, and I'm now not getting paid for 6 months. This job sucks, and he quits. And you know what I mean? How many times do we lose credibility and trust with our reps, let alone the customer, because we don't train on the behind the scenes part of sales?
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I found like here's an interesting point. Like a rep calls you pissed off because his customer's having a roof issue or whatever, right? A process issue, let's just say, and whatever you're selling, and you just go to immediately fix it. Well, that's the lazy manager's way of doing it, but the problem is then you'll just become always the problem solver for your people.
Yeah.
And I think an interesting point is like, how can we empower our people to know what avenues to take to fix it, right? And having them take ownership. Yep. Because I'm sure, like you said, it's like, I'll help them fix it one time, but then that second phone call, you're like, wait, didn't you deal with this on that?
I just helped you this last week.
Yeah, so then you'd simply ask them, like, what questions would you ask them to help coach them through and empower that person?
The big thing for me is more I try to get in person so I could show them. Like for us, a lot of it's done on a website and stuff, so it's more of like, let me show you where you click and do all that kind of stuff, and then help them. Or over the phone, I make them go onto the website and like click the back end stuff to go find it.
Yeah.
Because we're all humans are the type where when you do something or write something down, you remember it more likely than not.
So kind of walking through, it's like, now you do it. Like log in, press here.
Yeah, if I'm on the phone, hey, can you grab your iPad? Cool, go to the website. Okay, log in, click on this, click on that. Because I know, and so I walk them through. They're doing it, so the next time they remember. If they call me, hey, remember where you clicked this? Oh, yeah. So
and another thing is like, okay, my account's canceling. Like, what do I do? It's like, well, we have an account manager that's in charge of cancels that you can talk with them. And her name's Sandy, and call Sandy, and she's always your go-to. And now you just helped empower that guy to be like, oh, I'm not going to call Max on this. I'm going to call Sandy. And you just avoided another fire to have to, like, emergency call, like, oh, what do I do? It's like, good. Call Sandy. She's your gal. Because I think a lot of times we try to take on all the problems and all the burdens as leaders in this industry, and it, like, sometimes almost, like, wants to make us, like, quit. We're almost to the point where it's like, gosh, like, I just feel like I'm babysitting. But it's probably poor leadership in the sense of, like, we're not empowering.
Well, I bet a lot of people watching, me specifically, is we all work for companies that have their job is to give us the tools to be successful. We'll use those tools, like.
Most companies. There are a few I've seen.
Yeah. I've been very blessed.
Yes.
Legacy and Sunrun, they've done a phenomenal job of they gave us the tools to be successful, and so I have all these tools like account managers, all these things to on. So why not have my reps use those guys if Legacy and Sun's gonna provide them, and whether you're in other industries, use those tools that they're giving you.
Exactly.
And I think the biggest thing is think of your customers. I can't tell you how many times I've known the process and helped the customer, and guess what they do a week after you helped them? Whether it's even a same-day install, and they call you, oh, the install was done wrong this or that, and you're the guy that knew everything, you do it right. Well, guess what they're going to do? They're going to give you referrals. They're going to love you.
It's another opportunity to get referrals.
Yeah, like, the second you be the guy that they could rely on and help, like the second they're going to just tell everyone about you. I think that's huge. That's the best part is getting referrals after,
Quick question on referrals. Interesting plug before we kind of transition into the psychology of selling. So obviously in solar and a lot of industries like door-to-door, referral would be like the biggest gem. What are some of the best practices you found to get more referrals? I
think the number one thing I've seen is role-playing with customers. After a sale, I actually tell the customer, I say, you know what, Sam? We give, in our company, we give $350 per person refer, but you know what's going to happen when you go tell everyone at work you're going solar? What? They're going to say, don't do it. Why? Because they think it's I give them all the objections, and then I say, let me walk you through, and I tell them what they're going to say.
That's awesome.
And I say, you say this, this, and this, and I guarantee you they're going to say, I'm interested. And it's so funny. I get calls all the time from referrals. Yeah, hey, I talked to Sam, and he said he's going solar with you, but that, I've looked at it and I didn't want to do it, but he told me it's different than what I thought it was. I'd be interested. And so I think the number one thing is take the time to actually walk your customers through, but also that solidifies your own sale, whether it's, any
because
industry.
The worst is when they cancel 2 weeks later because they talk to their boss and the boss talks them out of it because they weren't prepped and they were like, oh, maybe I'm not doing a good thing. And you're just like, no, we just didn't understand. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so I think that's the biggest thing for referrals is like take the time to walk your customers through. I think another thing too is I'm a big believer in it's okay to spend money to make money sometimes. Like I've done extra incentives on top of what Sunrun offers for referrals. Like I've told a customer one time, hey, if you can refer me 5 people before your install, I'll give you an extra $500.
Yeah.
He gave me those 5 referrals in 3 days.
Yeah.
So he was like, oh yeah, I want this. And then he also got the money that the solar company gives them. But like, I was like, wow, this is a cool little niche thing.
It's investing in your business. I mean, how many companies spend thousands of dollars on leads? It's like, why don't you take ownership as a 1099, as a business owner and an entrepreneur and say, yeah, I'll throw in some
write it off anyways.
Like, it's like I've paid. I'm like, look, I pull out I've been in a customer's home, pull out a checkbook. I'm like, $1,000, and I write their name on it, and I go, you know how you get this right now? And they're like, you know what I mean? And you see their eyes go, oh shoot. I'm like, takes 10 guys.
I think sometimes we forget, like, we make $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 in the industry where, like, people in the real world, like, to make $70,000 is, like, a good thing to them.
And another 1,000 is like freaking.
What the heck? Like,
it's a big deal.
Yeah, I think
$500, like, that's their week's work of work. It's like,
and all they have to do is tell people.
Yeah, I doubled my week. And so I think speaking on referrals, like, I mean, how sad is it to see how many reps undervalue or even, like, don't even ask. Like, they don't even, like...
Yeah.
leverage that.
Yeah, and it's ask, but like tell them how it's going to be. I think is big. Do you know? There's a book I read that an average person knows, or someone told me this. 250 people by at least first name basis. So people know people. So why not? It doesn't hurt to just ask and walk them through it. I think is one of the key things I do for.
What's the most amount of names you've gotten from one customer?
He kind of cheated. He was the HOA president, but he referred me in less than a month. 23 people that signed up with me. 23. Yeah. So
comment on here if you're watching this live. I want to see. Put the number of most amount of referrals you've gotten from one customer. I'm curious. Okay, so I gotta go reset the camera. But yeah. So let's jam on. We're gonna jam on the psychology aspect, and I wanna kind of pick your brain. So let's do. We were talking psychology is different. Like, a lot of like yesterday we talked a lot about in some other podcasts I did. It was like the sales process, like what to say, your door approach, some scripts, some role plays and stuff like that. We're gonna fast forward and we're gonna talk more about behind the scenes of the script, right? So let's do an example. Let's role play for a second. Yeah. Your door approach. I'm curious to hear your solar pitch or whatever, and then let's dive into like the meat behind it, because it's becoming more consciously competent is what makes really a good sales rep.
Well, first off, the reason why this is so big to me is, if you ask my wife, she'll tell you I am like the worst word speaker person ever. Like I probably just said that wrong.
You just said that wrong. Yeah. Yes, I'm the worst word speaker ever.
Like I was over on New Year's Eve, we were playing a game, and it was what's that place with an A? The cold place. See, I'm doing it right now. Okay.
Arcade?
Cold? Antarctica.
I
said arcade. I pointed at the game and I said, Arcanada!
Arcanada!
And everyone's like, are you stupid? So anyways, for me, I get really fumbled up in words, and all my friends that know me since I was a little kid, I am the worst speaker kind of person. It's really funny. My wife's funny because I'll get on the phone with customers in front of her and I flip the script. I'm very professional, and she's like, how do you do that? I'm like, I don't know. But this is, I guess, what's helped me is understanding the psychology behind why I say. I try to keep things very simple, so I don't mess up my own words, because I will, if I do that. And so, yeah, I think the biggest key is understanding the why, the psychology behind why we say things. And so, you asked to give a door approach, and we all know we all have a break preoccupation. So for me, my break preoccupation when I knock on the door is people that are in the solar industry. Net metering is obviously how solar is generally has to be done, is you feed power back to the grid. So how I break preoccupation when I knock on a door is, hey, sorry to bother you, my name's Max. I'm responsible for your net metering project in the neighborhood. Did you get that notice from the utility company?
What notice?
Yeah, and we can walk through it. But so the psychology though, so how many times do we train reps? Hey, here's my pitch. Here's how to say it. Go say it. You're going to be awesome. But how many times have we had reps come back and, hey, I'm saying word for word what you're saying, but I'm not getting the same results you're getting. And for me, I clued in and said, well, why is that? And as I spent time going out with guys I've studied personally, it's because they don't understand the psychology behind why they're saying those sentences. For example, using that example, what's the psychology behind me saying, I'm responsible for a net metering project. Did you get the notice from the utility? What's the psychology behind that? And to kind of break it down, it's breaking their preoccupation. It's something that 99 out of 100 people I'm going to say that to have no clue what I just said, but they heard the utility, so it's probably important. That's the psychology, is you're getting them to open up their I guess,
break down their walls.
Yeah, break down their walls and stuff. And so I think the biggest takeaway is, what's the psychology of whether on a door approach and a close of every step of the process? I think too many times that's missed.
Yeah. So what are some of the other key points in your sales? So your first 30 seconds, that break preoccupation and getting them to kind of be like, wait, what's going on? My utility, I'm listening now. What other points of the sale do you find maybe the nonverbal or the psychology of some of the, I don't know, share some of the things that you find helpful.
Yeah, well, I think the door approach, right, I may mess it up, I always forget, is it's the, the break preoccupation, the problem, solution, value, and then setting the appointment is kind of how I've broken down the 5 main points. And so, if you can understand those, I think those 5 points can correlate to any door-to-door job, is the 100%. Break preoccupation, problem, solution, value, and then the setting the appointment or getting the deal or getting in the home, whatever you want to call it. For me, it's the psychology of it. Those like the next part after I break the proclamation net meeting. Well, what kind of problem can I create, and what's the psychology behind it to get them to truly want to hear what I'm about to offer them with it, which is our solar program.
Yeah.
And so, for me, the problem I always talk about is what they think they know about solar and what's going on with the utilities and things like that. But why am I saying those? It's all of our door approaches and all of our closes are funnels.
Yep.
They start like this, and we want to get them to the end result.
Yep.
And I think sometimes we forget, like, wow, like, if I say this sentence, what is this customer going to respond? Well, we usually only have one or two ways they're going to go with it. But if you can not nail it down to know exactly what they're going to say and why they're going to say it, that's how you can get, like, the most effective door approaches and stuff out there.
So give me an example. Like, what's something you say on the door that you're going to get the response? You already know the response I'm going to get.
I think the biggest problem is, hey, in the past, the only way you could go solar is buy solar for $40,000 out of pocket. Have you looked at that before? Every time people, yeah, I'm not interested. I don't have 40 grand. I'm not going to buy solar.
So you embedded like almost the response prior to them even, you kind of funneled them into like exactly where you wanted them.
Yeah, and then exactly. Who's got 40 grand to go buy solar panels? That's so expensive.
Problem.
Yeah, what I'm doing is completely different, and then I explain how the different programs that are out now, whether it's a PPA lease or a finance option for purchasing, because for some people are just that's all people are misinformed about what they. In solar,
their perception, well, anything. It's like pest control or alarms or satellite or roofing. It's like, no, I don't have the money for a roof. It's like, well, did you know that we have awesome finance programs? Or, hey, pest control. I'm super happy. Like, we don't have any bugs or blah, blah. It's like, well, that's the problem. It's like nobody pays attention to underneath, or, you know what I mean? Like, there's always a certain problem you can kind of create.
Yeah.
And you can funnel them to like.
But it's a problem that what 99.9% of the people, when I say that problem, are going to say, no, I'm not interested. Yeah, that's exactly why I'm here. I'm doing something completely different. You weren't interested because of these reasons, right? Yeah, let me tell you what I'm doing.
Yeah, because now you agreed. You got them to agree with you, and they thought they were like fighting you.
Yeah, and when
the psychology behind that is so amazing.
It's crazy.
Let me walk it step one. Let's slow that down, because I don't think people that are listening or watching this caught all that. He asked a question, but he framed it in a way that's going to make me agree, but he wants me to agree, right? So slow this down, because I think we went through that way too fast. And
so the walk back is, hey,
yes.
In the past you've had solar people. In the past, the only way to go solar is to buy the panels, which can be really expensive, like $30,000 to $40,000. Have you had people try to sell you solar panels before?
Yeah, and we're not interested.
Yeah, I wouldn't be either. And
see what he just did? Okay, so you're going to get that every time, right? Yeah, and we're not interested.
Because the psychology is, they just thought when they said that, like, ha, I won. You're another guy that just is trying to get me to spend 40 grand, which I don't have.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, I won, and you go, sweet, and you respond with,
great. I'm actually doing something completely different. I would never buy solar either. That's too expensive.
And now all of a sudden, you're on their team.
Well, and the psychology too is, then what do most people want to do? So what are you doing? Like, you just agreed with me that it is expensive and that you're doing something completely different. I'm intrigued. But also, you're saying for us, the biggest thing I think is getting the elephant out of the room, which is saying the word solar. I think sometimes guys get afraid to say solar and say what they're really doing. They try to do this whole roundabout door approach. And then at the very end, they're like, and I'm doing solar. Like,
it's this little plug. Like,
yeah, any industry, right? And it's funny because then, like, the customer, oh, no, I'm not interested. But it's like, just say it head on, but say it in the right way. I'm saying the word solar, but, like, saying it like I'm on their side.
Yeah.
I'm on your side. Yeah, solar was expensive. You had to put liens on your home, all these kind of things. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So their walls just come down.
And that applies to any approach, I think.
Yeah.
Like, and so then you go into, that was the problem. It's like, yeah, the problem in the past is I had to spend 40, like, that, man, it sucks. Like, I'm with you. And then the solution is, how do you present your solution with solar?
Well, hey, I'm doing something completely different. You've probably seen this in the neighborhood. We actually can put solar on your home at no cost to you. We pay for it to go up, and then we maintain, insure, warranty it, and then we essentially become like a utility company, and you just get power from us instead of the utility company. So that's kind of the very simple solution in our industry and in our
that's
market.
That's a PPA or lease.
PPA lease kind of program and stuff. So if I'm leading with the lease, that's kind of that's what gets a lot of people. But again, the psychology is, the problem was that the solar was expensive, it was risky. Because everyone that's looked in Arizona, our market, and I feel like very similar in all industries, is everyone knows about your product, whether it's pests, security, solar. So when you're getting to agree, like, hey, you've probably had, a guy come by trying to put security on your home, like, yeah, it's kind of annoying, right? Even if you're doing something, yeah. Well, hey, what I'm doing is a little different. I take more of the smart home, whether you're smart, you could do it that way. I haven't been in it for a while, but like.
No, it's the psychology that you can use that same question to get them. I've actually never even consciously noticed myself doing that, but I do that. I did a roof approach yesterday. I was doing some training videos for this roofing company, and I was like, I'm going to use the same approach I do in alarms, and then I'm going to use the same approach I did in solar, and you know what I mean? And I say that same thing. Oh, you probably had a bunch of people trying to sell you roofs, and and you probably think it's like going to cost you a ton of money, and you're putting it off because you don't have 20 grand sitting around. Yeah. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, oh, that's exactly why I'm here, and like I'm doing something I'm doing this program. That's a great.
And that word, I think a key one-liner that we like to use is that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. People, I'm not interested. Yeah, that's why I'm here. What? Yeah, that's why I'm here. I'm actually, and then you can say whatever you want.
It's so funny because logically that makes no sense whatsoever, but it works.
The psychology, it gets people like, huh? So.
Yeah, I'm not interested. Yeah, that's why I'm here.
Yeah, that's why I'm here.
Another good one is, that's fine, just so you know, blah, blah, blah. Like,
yeah.
Hey, that's fine, just so you know, blah, boom, boom, boom. And it redirects, their brain kind of joggles them a little bit to where it buys you another X amount of time.
Yeah, and so that's, I guess the takeaway of the psychology is, you need to know the psychology of your door approach, and then we can talk about the close, but so that you can make a door approach and make something that is psychologically like going to get them to funnel down what you want. I know by saying exactly those sentences, I know the why and what they're going to respond and how they're going to respond. I know when I start bringing up solar, they're going to get all objective, like, I'm not interested. I want that because I know my next part of my door approach is to overcome that, and so on and so forth.
So you go value, and then how do you transition? Like, what do you go to? Like, are you trying to get in the home? Or are you trying to get an appointment? Like,
solar is different, obviously, than all the other sales. It's more of a two-touch, where for us, we set the appointment, then you go back within a day or two to sell them.
Yeah. So what's your opinion?
Personally, and this is our belief here in Phoenix, we don't train on same days because one thing that we've always been very accomplished at is the conversion is from the time you sell an account to install. How many deals are actually signed and actually getting installed? Overall, our office alone has an 82% conversion, which for guys that are in the solar industry would maybe say, hey, that's pretty good.
Pretty good, yeah.
And I think the key thing is not doing same days because I think too many accounts are lost doing the same day sell in the solar industry.
Yeah.
And I think the psychology too in all sales is too many times I think in all sales we peak the emotions too high. And then they're coming down that emotional roller coaster, and that's when they cancel. So how can we all become good salesmen of not emotionally peaking too high with a customer?
We're just keeping like that.
Yeah, kind of just a very steady arch kind of thing. So, but what was your question?
Yeah. So what do you do to set? So like.
Set.
So how do you transition into getting their usage setting?
My biggest thing is again the psychology of think about what's your most common objection you're going to hear at this time. Well, for me, the most common thing I've seen is, hey, do you we're interested, do you just have a card or pamphlet or some kind of like information?
Yeah. How many of y'all get that? It's like, can you leave me something? It's like, yes.
Yes.
No.
And so the psychology again is what could you say to get to already like preemptively overcome their objection and then also get them to say what you're wanting them to say. And so a really good line we like to use here is, so what I'm doing here is, unlike most of the other guys that just leave cards and pamphlets, we take more of a consultative approach. We look for the educated homeowners that are wanting to sit down to get educated about how they could pay less for power. You seem like that type. When would be a good time for you in the next day or two? We could set up a time I could come by and just educate you on how this might make sense for you.
Love it. So you use the word educate quite a bit. Explain why you use the word educate.
Even everyone watching this and you and me, we all want to keep up with the Joneses and we all want to say we're the smartest.
Yep.
And so by you saying that and you're not saying to me, well, hey, I'm looking for the educated homeowners. What is it? I'm educated. Yeah, that's me. And so like that's the psychology is you're getting them put in that, well, I want to be like everyone else, but I'm a smart person. And you're telling me that smart people are looking at what you're doing or signing up with you or whatever it is. Well, I'm going to do that too.
And it's also softer so that they're like, it's not gonna hurt to get educated.
Yeah.
There's that side of it too, because it's like a lot of people, it's like, we're going to sit down and go over a proposal and see if, buy this thing.
And I think that's a key thing too is what are the bad words? We never say the word proposal. You say, agreement. Or when contract, never say contract, say agreement. Things like that is so, and I think that's in all sales, is what are some words that maybe it can be a psychology trigger.
Design is softer than the number, you know what I mean?
Because I think we can all agree is whether any sales you do, once you're in the home, the percentage of you closing or signing that person up right then is, yeah. And so what could you do to like soften the blow to get in the home? I remember back in security, a really good thing that guys do is I see in the back of your home you've got that sliding door. Why don't we take a look at that and just kind of step in? There's all sorts of different ways. But I think the educated thing is a huge thing. Is I found people all want to be educated, but also the thing is, do you just have some information? Hey, like I said, we don't just pass out cards of payments. We're looking for the educated homeowners that want to pay less for power. Would you say paying less for power, which you have to have, is something you'd be interested in? Well, yeah, but, and then they give you your objection. That's what you want. You want them to give out the objection so that you can overcome it.
Yeah, and that's actually a weird common thread. I was with the top satellite guy last night, and he's like, if I'm not getting objections, I'm scared. I want them to give me the objection so then I can actually just throw it right back at them and use it. Because if they're not giving me anything to use, I'm kind of nervous.
We've all gotten those calls from the new guy. I got this super solid deal. Oh, yeah? Yeah, they're going to sign up. And you go there and they're not home or anything like that because they probably I didn't even give me objections. He was just like, yeah, come by. Yeah. Oh, man.
So basically, to kind of sum all this up, this has been awesome, actually. Anybody in sales, this is good freaking nuggets. So it's understanding, even that plant overcoming the objection before it's going to come up, like you said. Those that didn't catch this, and we'll slow it down for you. Hey, unlike the guys that leave the flyers and the cards, I actually take more of a consultative approach, and I set up meetings, and I actually get in the home and show you, versus the guys that are going to leave the cards and flyers. I don't do that. Now all of a sudden, they can't come to you and be like, well, do you have a card? It's like, did you not just listen to what I? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I said, I don't do that. I do this. So my program's a little different, and I think that's a huge nugget because everybody in this industry, in all door-to-door, deal with leave a card, leave some information.
And how many call back? 1 in 1,000?
Yeah, I mean, not even that. I'm like, man, I don't know if I'm ever going to call. I actually got a call from a Vim guy yesterday. One of my customers from Uvalde, Texas, from 5 years ago, calls me.
Really?
Hey, Sam, you still with Vim? No, but I was like, I was like, what do you need? He's like, well, my sensor. I was like, call this number. Yeah. But you know what I mean? Never do I get, here's my card, call my number, and I'll buy it from you in a year.
No, never does. I think the biggest thing is it's okay to walk. I think I saw this one of your other posts. It's okay to walk away from deals in a sense. I think that was with those two Joshes, right? Yeah. But I think it's okay to walk away, but it's okay to walk away with you in control. I've had a lot of deals. Hey, it looks like right now is not a good time for you.
I'll come back.
Why don't I come back in a week? And if you're interested, we'll talk then. Yeah, that's fine. And then, I
think it has to do with area management. I mean, it's just basically saying, I'm a master of this area. I'm committed to staying in this area. So I know I can come back in this situation. That doesn't make me a pussy and cave in on all the doors, right? It's like, oh, I'll come back. Don't be that guy. But I think there is certain situations where this is obviously not a great time. And if I caught you at a good time, I know I'd sell you.
Yeah.
You're my customer. I know I'd sell you, so I'm okay with being patient.
I think too many reps don't recognize that fast enough to be the one the ball's always got to be.
Yeah, you're the one taking
the
that.
The psychology is you got to make them feel like the ball. When you say a line like that, hey, why don't I come back and catch you at a good time for you? They're thinking, yeah, he's gonna come back when I feel good. Or most of those people think those guys never come back.
Exactly.
Someone take a good note and go back. You get it. I get a lot of people that way. So
a lot of people.
I think the biggest thing too is being blunt sometimes in the right way. Sometimes when people just aren't getting traction, I just say, and this is a really good one-liner too, if you don't mind me asking.
Ooh, great way to start your frame.
One of the guys I love working with, Dusty Wynn, he likes to even say, you could ask someone that has the fattest wife in the world, if you don't mind me asking, why's your wife so fat? And you could get away with it.
You really could. It's crazy. Yeah. If you don't mind asking, what's all over your face? Were you born? Yeah, were you born like that?
But a great thing that I like to do sometimes if I can't get traction, hey, if you don't mind me asking, did anything I say intrigue you?
Ooh, and it's an okay question now because you framed it right.
And a lot of I like the idea that I could save money on my utilities, and then they'll give your objection again.
Yeah. If you don't mind me asking, like at the close, right? Like if you don't mind me asking, like honestly, can you just be like man to man? Like if you don't mind me asking, like see how I frame that, and it sets up a vulnerable situation, and then they go. So like, what was like the biggest reason you like didn't do it? Like I'm just curious.
Well, I like to actually do the other opposite. A lot of times if I'm in a home and a close and I'm not getting traction and they're just really quiet, I say, hey, if you don't mind me asking, what have you liked so far?
Boom. And that gives them, it starts to implant positive.
Yeah. What do you like so far about what I've showed you? I like the idea there's no cost, it's going to save us money, like.
And then digging even deeper. Why is that? Well, why is that?
Exactly.
Why is that?
So I've taken those approach, like, hey, so far, what intrigues you? Taking those kind of approaches, I think, has really helped, because then it puts, like you said, the psychology, it puts the person in a positive mood. They're just trying to look for things they like.
Money.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're out of time. Those of you guys who are watching this, share this right now. Like, hit the little share button and tag my boy Max Ganley. He shared a lot of good nuggets. We should like hashtag confidential because this is like secret stuff. Like this is like the in the brains of the greats. Like
this is the Phoenix success right here.
Yeah, it's like if you want to be a top rep, like this is where it comes from. Is like you can tell that he's mastered every line. The way that he tones that. And he's like, well, if you don't mind me asking, and like how you can hear the tone is the same how he did it instead of like if you don't mind me asking. Like there's different tones he was using, so pay attention to some of those little things because it's understanding the psychology of how he's communicating as a salesperson versus just reading the script. Well, my manager said to say this, this, and this, and I'm not getting the results. You'll find a common thread when I'm interviewing top reps, and I've interviewed a lot so far. They all are like, I say the same thing as everybody else. And I think I get that answer every time. It's like I have the same approach. Like I'm saying the same thing, but it's behind. It's what's behind is different.
Yep.
So, okay, I think, dude, I appreciate your time on this. This has been
thanks for having me. I'm excited, and just want to, what's your why and what's your reps why? The process of getting installed, and then the psychology behind all of that. I think is my big three things I've always tried to live by, and it's helped me, help guys, and it's a great opportunity. So, thanks again for having me.
Okay, you're the man, dude.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. All right, Facebook Live people, love you. Oh, we only got like 1 million people on here. Just kidding. Corey, what's up?